Okay, so it's time to get back into actually controlling the outside world. Alright, so we've done a little review now of the basic concepts. And I want to start lighting up lights. I want to start building cool things and making things go. Alright? And we're going to start, again, very briefly, working with the onboard LED. There's a small LED right here on the chip that we can control. And if we look, you can see that it's actually hooked up to pin 13. Okay, so it shares pin 13. And it's also worth note, we might touch upon this, that pin 13 is also what's called a pulse width modulated pin, or PWM. But we'll come back to that. All we really need to know right now is that it's on pin 13. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. Let's make a new sketch right from the get-go. And I'm going to put it over here for the moment. I know it's going to hide me, but that's okay. And let's, I'm inherently lazy. I've said it many times. I'm going to copy this right here. And I'm going to paste it right there. Alright, so I've got my global section, my header, and we'll code this into digital right. And we played with it. So it should go really quickly. And what we have to do now is we do actually have, well, let me finish cleaning up this code here a little bit. So I can close this. I'm going to copy this. Paste it there. Copy this. And paste it there. And I don't know. Well, we're going to open up the serial port just so we have it, but it may not be super important. I'm going to put that right there in my setup. Okay. I think we are done with this piece of code. So I'm going to go ahead and close it out. I'm going to move this one over. And I'm going to file save as introToDigital right. I'll just call it introDigital. Alright. Save that. Okay. So we do want to go ahead and turn on that pin. And you might recall from class that I said the one thing we have to do is we have to tell the port whether or not it's going to be an in or an out. Okay? That is done with the simple command pin mode. Alright? And I'm going to put a parenthesis there. So pin mode. So, all right, let's make this nice and clean. I'm going to go up to globals, and I'm going to create an integer variable, and I'm going to call it onboard LED, and it's going to be equal to 13. The reason it's equal to 13, once again, is because pin 13 is the one that has the LED. So this has got the onboard LED. So I've set my onboard LED variable to 13. Now what I want to do is I want to take my onboard LED and set it to output. So I want to send something out. I want to turn on a light. Alright, so we're moving along just fine. And of course, now that we're familiar with functions, because we've done it a couple times and you've reviewed the previous set of videos, I'm going to actually not do it in the loop, but I am going to create a function. And I think I'll call it example1. Example1. Actually, I'll go ahead and write it on. That's good enough. Example1. Alright, and now I'm going to put example1 into my loop. And I'm going to tidy my code. Okay, so I've created a function called example1, and I'm calling it for my loop. Okay, so let's make it do something. So we have created a variable referring to pin 13, which has the LED, and we've set that pin to output. So we can now send out a signal. So let's do that. Let's send out a signal. it's going to be digital, right, because I just want to do an on-off, a yes-no, a high-low. What do I want to do? Well, I want to turn on my onboard LED. So I'm going to make it high, which means on. And then, oops, what the heck? There we go. And I want it to stay on for some brief period of time. I'll say 250 milliseconds. And then I just want to turn it off. So I'm going to copy that, paste it, and I'm going to turn it off. Okay, sweet. I think we should have a functional piece of code already. So let's run it. And I'll switch my camera. And if everything's good, you can see that my LED is flashing at 250 milliseconds on, 250 milliseconds off. And I can change that. I'll make it so it's off for a real short time. Okay, nice. So let's actually make it tell us what's actually happening too. We did open up the serial port. So that's easy enough to do. I'm simply going to do a serial.println and simply on. And then off. So now you can see we're going to do two things at one time. So if I turn this on, I upload it, and if I open my serial window, you can see that it's saying on, off in intervals that relate to the flashing of the light. All right? Super. Okay. So let's now actually move this to a different light. So I'm going to pause it, and I'll rejoin you in just a second. Actually, I've got my thing covered. There we go. Okay. So I want to play with something new. All right. I want to. We've already played with this LED quite a bit. I want to play with something new, and we'll expand on what we've already done. So these are 3-color LEDs. All right. Now I've got a few different ones in the room. This one is probably the most common, and you can see that it has a clear LED on it. It has 4 wires. Oh, you stupid camera. Oh, the focus is getting to be crazy. Let me go to autofocus. I'm sorry, I'm going to manually focus it. Okay, there we go. So it's got a clear LED on it. It has 4 wires. And if you look carefully, one of them has a negative on it. The others say RGB, which stands for red, green, and blue. There's actually 3 LEDs inside this casing and 1 common wire. Now, some of these boards I have are green, some of them are black, some of them are kind of a dark blue. The other thing is I have a couple which are oriented horizontally, so you can stick them in like this, and they'll shine upwards. Most of them, though, are like this. In other words, when we plug it into the board, it's going to shine off to the side. That being said, that doesn't really matter. The important thing is that you find one. When you find it, look for the negative, okay, or the GND. It'll be labeled negative or GND. That's the negative right there. Now, on the motherboard, let me lighten this up just a bit. All right, you'll see, let me hold this up and we'll focus in on it. what I want you to pay attention to is this row of pins here with the right angle. Okay? And actually, for that matter, this row of pins for the right angle. Both of these, this hole right here, this is ground. On this side, this hole right here is ground. That one's positive. That one's positive. So if I take this device and I plug it in so that the ground goes into that corner like so, okay, I have it now properly connected. So that ground wire is in the corner hole. And I think if I hold it up here and we have to mess with the focus, see that? That ground wire is in the corner hole. Okay? So that being said, let's do a quick little test. If we look again at this, you'll see that I'm talking about pin 0, 1, 2. Okay, these are the ones it's actually connected to. 0, 1, and 2. And if you looked really carefully, if the light was just right, you would see these numbers right inside of here, and you would see that it is actually plugged into 0, 1, and 2. Okay? What we want to do before we move on is simply test to make sure we've got a connection. I'm going to do so by just quickly changing this value without changing the name to a 0, and I'm going to run it. If it works, what we should see is this LED flash a color. And in fact, it's flashing red. Let's test out the 1. We'll run it. Alright, it's flashing green. And we'll test this. And it's flashing blue. Red, green, and blue. 0, 1, and 2. Alright, I'm going to put this back to 0. Like so. And we've only got a couple of minutes left for this particular video. Oops, I meant to put it back to 13. I am so sorry. I want to put that back to 13. Okay, so this one's 13. And we have 0, 1, and 2 here. So I'm going to copy this and paste it 2 more times, 3 more times. And I am going to make one of these an R LED, and we know it's now 0. We just tested it. I'm going to make this a green LED, and I'm going to make it a 1. We just tested it. And I'm going to make this a B LED, and I'm going to make it a 2. Okay? I'm going to have to do the same thing down here with pin mode. And I'm going to have to go with my red. I'll just put this down here and change the letter. Red, green, and blue. Okay? And now what I'm going to do is, in this last few seconds, is I'm going to copy this and I'm going to call this example 2. And I'm going to just test my red LED. And if everything's good, if I run example 2, the red LED will flash.